So did you know that they was doing research into investigating whether ADHD was being overdiagnosed? The review also looked at autism, and the government released their interim report findings in March of this year. But we haven't heard anything about it. Hi, I'm Jade. I'm a private psychotherapist. I'm also diagnosed autistic, and I run a place called Planet Pure, a place where I help autistic people begin to understand themselves rather than blame themselves. When I heard that there was a review looking at whether ADHD was being overdiagnosed, I was genuinely interested, because if that is what the evidence did show, I'm a big person for research and what it shows, as well as being interested in how they found their findings. I'm also a big believer of lived experience. Well, their hypothesis is not what they found, so instead they found that there was major problems with the system itself. Long waiting lists, huge differences depending on where a person lives, not enough specialists, services that are fragmented and difficult to navigate, a system that often makes the diagnosis the gateway to support, and absolutely so far no convincing evidence that ADHD is being widely overdiagnosed. I also mentioned that they looked into autism, and again, the conversation was not that too many people are autistic now. It was the demand has grown, services haven't kept up, and there is a real need to better understand why so many people are now being identified. I personally don't find this surprising at all, and I wanted to talk about one of the most obvious patterns I've noticed working in schools and also through my own experience with myself and my children. For years, people most likely to be noticed were often the ones whose difficulties or externalising behaviours were obvious enough to trigger a referral through school. But what if you was quiet? What if you was masking? What if you was a girl? What if you belonged to a group of people that research has historically overlooked, like ethnic minority groups? How many people learn to survive instead of being recognised? I want to be really clear, the review doesn't explicitly say this, so this is my interpretation rather than, I guess, one of its conclusions, but it does highlight that groups of people like girls have historically been under-recognised, and that we need to better understand who is still being missed. That fits with a wider body of research, which is suggesting that children with difficulties that are more visible are often more likely to be noticed and referred. Meanwhile, there are other children who are struggling just as much, the ones that come home in tears, the ones that end up developing anxiety and depression and school refusal really early. These are children, and the ones whose parents are usually saying, my child is not coping, while school is saying, no, they're absolutely fine, because they're not causing a problem to us. But they often don't have the relationships to be able to make that statement. But school is currently a gateway to referral, and some of the questions that are asked are about behaviour. And I can't help but wonder how many of those children was missed, and maybe continue to still be missed, because their struggles did not disrupt the classroom or the teacher. They disrupted the child inside instead. Again, to be completely balanced and fair, I do believe that every assessment should be thorough and accurate. Nobody benefits from an inaccurate diagnosis. I do think this study is beginning to discredit those who say, oh, everybody's ADHD or has autism these days, or it's being overdiagnosed. Many people have actually spent decades struggling, wondering what's wrong, ultimately going unnoticed, undiagnosed, unsupported and invisible.